Hi, it's me again. So we're going to discuss period four, what exactly happened during this time period, why, and some key events. So, period four begins by shining the spotlight on the executive branch, because back when the Articles Confederation was ratified and the new constitution was put in place, this advocate for better and strong central government. So now they actually have an executive branch, but the beginning shines a light on that specific part of the government. Did you know that the Alien and Sedition Acts were put in place by John Adams, and he ends up actually serving one term because he was so unliked, and he felt a sense of like shame, I guess, and he ended up getting replaced by Jefferson. This era was marked by tremendous growth and change, beginning with the Jeffersonian democracy and progressing to the age of Jackson. With the Louisiana Purchase, the War of 1812, and the Monroe Doctrine, the United States was slowly but surely establishing its place as a force to be reckoned with in international affairs. Key events during the Jeffersonian democracy was the election of 1800. It was the bitter mudslinging campaign. I think it was the first. Yeah, it was the first mudslinging tactic or campaign ever occurred. I'm guessing that's what gave birth to like stuff basically what this was basically the premise of like how campaigning is done nowadays. I guess the Constitution, which states that a very interesting fact about the election of 1809 and why it's so significant is because the Constitution states that the candidate with the most electoral votes is appointed as the President of the United States. But surprise, surprise, both candidates end up tying, which usually means that the decision is passed or transferred to the House of the Representatives, and they ended up being tied again. But but a few Federalists ended up shifting the vote to Jefferson, and he ended up winning. Oh yeah, the two candidates were Aaron Burr and Jefferson. In case you didn't know that. Our key concept to aim for is to understand the significance of the election of 1800 and why that played a big role in today's society. So Jefferson was primarily a Democratic, Republican, and a Federalist at the same time. What that means, you will learn it later in class. You will learn about how these new political parties and their ideologies came into being. A key concept to keep an eye for is to identify the differences between these political parties and the similarities, however small they may be. Back to what I was saying, it is important to note that Jefferson ran on an anti-federalist platform. He had many significant roles, but the most important action of all is the Louisiana Purchase. A little backstory is that France owned all the land west of the Mississippi and the port of New Orleans. As much as Jefferson liked France, he knew that their presence in North America posed a threat. So also back then, America relied on the port of New Orleans for trade, and because it was owned by the French, it made it very costly to use. I mean, it ended up the request ended up being accepted, and you will learn on why the request was accepted, and like what factors play a role into why France said yes to the purchase, which was and a key concept to pay close attention to is the consequences of the Louisiana Purchase, both positive and negative, and why Jefferson was perceived as a hypocrite for his purchase of the aforementioned land. With the purchase came the idea of exploration and manifest destiny. An idea is going to pop up a lot, and it's probably going to be the most important ideology or idea for Americans, and the premise of a lot of actions that end up, happening. So Jefferson gets elected to the second term. During his second term, and there was a little storm brewing that would later end up to the War of 1812. Contextualization and why the War of 1812 you later learned about in class. During this time, France and Great Britain were at war. At this time, U.S. had a policy of non-involvement in European conflict as a way of maintaining their close alliance with Britain, despite, just acquiring their freedom. Very, very, very not a very long time ago. So France. So this is interesting because France and Great Britain were both friends of the United States. The United States would trade with France a lot, and would trade with Great Britain a lot. So both parties in the war, France and Great Britain, felt some sort of like fake friend type stuff going on here. They felt like, why I used to trade with him. I thought he was supposed to be my friend type stuff. So they said so they declared that if any U.S. Merchant ships entering into the opponent's water will be destroyed once if found. A lot of stuff happened during this time period, which is such as Marbeck being elected president and running a pro-war platform. You'll learn about the specific details in class. All you have to keep in mind is how the Battle of New Orleans led to Jackson eventually becoming president, and what the significance of the Treaty of Ghent, I believe, was in regards to the U.S. Also, you should be able to explain how an event such as the Hartford Convention led to the death of Federalists. One of the key concepts to understand are the consequences of the war and how it led to significant events in the U.S. as a whole. Another key event that shaped American politics is the Marburg versus Madison case, which is a very important case. You should pay close attention to. I'm not going to get into it right now, but it's up to you to figure out why it's so important. Period within this period that ultimately influenced the vast majority is the Second Awakening. This movement saw a huge wave of evangelical ideas. Transformation had significant cultural and social implications, such as the movement, but as the movement emphasized moral purity and importance of individualism, which if you take AP Lang, you read a lot of texts that have to do with the idea. It also led to the creation of several social movements, including the temperance movement and the abolitionist movement, which will later gain traction in the upcoming time period. And the purpose was that they sought to change societal norms and values. Another significant development during this time period was the rise of the American economy. The country saw a surge in industrialization, thanks in part to the growing use of new technologies, such as the cotton gin and steam engine. So the development of new transportation led to an array of new ideas, new ways of trading, and a better economy in general. It basically facilitated the growth of commerce and trade. At the same time, the economic growth also contributed to societal issues such as income inequality and exploitation of workers, particularly those in manufacturing industry. This led to the rise of labor unions and the development of early labor regulations. Finally, this period saw a significant political change, including the establishment of the Democratic Republic Party and the rise of Andrew Jackson, who plays a very pivotal role in American history. His presidency was widely known. Also, a key concept to know is that it's up to you to figure out why Andrew Jackson ended up winning the election, because there was a specific event that led to him becoming so loved and popular. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's up to you to figure it out. His campaign was widely known to be based on an expansion of executive power and a focus in policies that favored the common man, such as the removal of Native Americans from their lands in the Trail of Tears. Thank you. Okay. So what was the conflict in this time period? Well, this is also, the conflict in this time period wasn't very, it's not how do I say this? Okay, so sorry, give me a second. The conflict was like a separation, or like a degree of separation between Federalists and Anti-Federalists. So because Jefferson, because it was like these divide between Americans on if they wanted to strictly follow the Constitution or not, because there was those who had this idea of anything not written in the Constitution is considered illegal, which is what Jefferson did. And why? Oh, I gave you the answer for why Jefferson is considered a hypocrite was because he was a huge believer of interpreting the Constitution as it is, but then these actions say the opposite. Key conflict in this time period was this. There wasn't really a conflict in this time period, I don't think, because this time period saw a huge wave of advantage, like of very good events or very pivotal events that happened, and there wasn't really, there wasn't really, I guess, a bad event that happened. I'm not quite sure, but yeah. Um, I guess a huge conflict is probably the beginning of the beginning of selfish. Selfish. People putting their interest at people putting their interest first, such as what Jefferson did by trying to he tried to pass forth. I believe it was a bill that says the president can purchase land which was not stated in the Constitution. So yeah, I believe there wasn't really a huge conflict. I might be wrong, but that's up to you to figure out. It's okay. Thank you.